This is going to be a lecture um about getting familiar with K-debate. It'll be pretty short, so there'll be a lot of time for y'all to ask questions. But I'll try to hopefully go in depth and make it not so confusing for y'all. The first thing is that there's a lot of K literature. So there are like a bunch of different Ks that people read all the time. There's a lot of books, so it might get a bit overwhelming. The first thing you should know is that literature is not that important unless you want to read a K with like a theory of power, about like a claim of the world, or there's like a postmodern K you have to want to read from authors like Foucault and Baudrillard. Those Ks are the only ones, in my opinion, that require literature. But everything else is usually pretty self-explanatory or simple. And you just need to read the cards that have been presented to you to understand what's going on in the round. Um, if you want to learn these like want to learn more literature though, I think you should read like books and like cut cards to understand it. But if you don't understand stuff, ChatGPT or other AI can summarize. Like Mac and I, like my partner, did this all the time to speed up the K learning process because there were a lot of arguments we wanted to learn. And like obviously there's not enough time in the world, so if you have to use AI, use AI. Cut your own cards. This is like the biggest piece of advice I think. When you don't cut your own cards, you don't really understand what the purpose of certain lines means in other people's cards, or you don't know why they like phrased a certain part of the highlighted portion this way than this way. But like when you take other people's cards, like you don't know the intent of how they cut the card, so it becomes a lot harder in order to explain it in the way they wanted it to or intended it to. But when you cut your own cards, it allows you to explain your K a lot better because it's highlighted and explained in the way that you want to explain it in, which makes it super simple. Another benefit for cutting cards is also just increasing your knowledge. So when other people read Ks that you're interested in, you'll be able to call them out on their flaws, and maybe have pieces of evidence actually against them that you understand really well, and you can go for in the back half. That can make it super simple and easy to win the debate. Um, yo, Sean. Oh wait. All right. Yeah, some recommendations for Ks to read or look at are settler colonialism, pessimism arguments, which basically say like that this group of people, like it's impossible for their social condition to become better. Like there's Afro pessimism, which is like African American people are like in a state of social death. Um, there's like migrant pessimism, which is like the same but about migrants or people who immigrated to America. Um, there's others about Asians. So there are a lot of pessimism arguments. And those ones require a lot of literature to understand because those are the ones about like with like strong theories of power. Other pieces of like literature from postmodernism include Baudrillard, Foucault, which has like a lot of stuff on biopolitical structures and biopower, and like about the state. There's also like Lacan, which is psychoanalysis, if y'all might probably have heard. It's basically a K about how desiring things is bad, and there's a disconnect between what we can understand and what we can like what is actually true, in which case we try to fulfill something that we can't, and that is bad. Those are a lot of arguments that require a lot of literature if you're interested in it and want to read, and can definitely make you a lot better at K debate because you have to understand more complicated things. These are ways the K can be gone for in debate. It's either going for a link in a framework or going for a link in alternative. Um, Link in framework basically says that like uh that you are some ism, ableist, racist, sexist, whatever. And because of that, you should lose. So there are like a lot of versions of these arguments. They're usually called like framework Ks. And they usually call debaters like racist, sexist, whatever, based on the link they have read to your affirmative. And then the framework interpretation says why you should lose for such arguments. So a lot of the framework arguments include reasons why accessibility outweighs, or like why isms push debaters out. And it usually says like quote moot case if we win a link, which means like if we win a link to your representations, or like if we have proven you were like racist, sexist, ableist, whatever, you should lose. Um, like the best way to understand these debates are like to watch YouTube debates. Like the one I've linked here is a Berkeley Prep debate, Berkeley Prep RV versus Greenhill CL, Glenbrook's Octos. But basically the debate is like a debate about whether you should lose for linking to the K. Um, and then all right, why there or rather if you should not lose for linking to K. The AF arguments that will be like against this will be typically like framework saying that no, links should must be about the plan and we should compare impacts and we should not have discussions about like racist rhetoric. And the neg will say no, we should have discussions about like racist rhetoric. Which is like the best way to evaluate the round. TLDR, the neg calls you an ism. The AF says you shouldn't be able to call us an ism because it's unfair. That's usually how most of these debates go. And it can be pretty complicated. So watching a lot of YouTube rounds can be helpful. Obviously I cannot explain all the intricacies and nuances of Lincoln framework on this like Zoom lecture because there's other things to talk about. But I can definitely give one later in the future, or y'all can ask me questions if you want, and I can answer them. Um, the second argument is link plus alternative. Basically, it says like you've linked to the critique, you should do this instead, or an alternative solution. Um, Usually this is like less strategic because like there's like things called permutations, which says like the AF can do the AF and it can do the alternative. And it's usually like mostly a true argument because there's not a reason why the AF cannot do the same thing as the alternative. Another thing is you need to say that the link turns the AF case. So like like what they have linked to turns their offense. So for example, if like you say the AF is capitalist, you say capitalism causes war, that link turns their case. But the alternative would be to have a socialist revolution, which would get rid of capitalism. Which means like the link turns your case, but the alternative solves it. This is like the K debate at its core. But it's like less common these days because Lincoln framework is like the strategic meta that most people have been following. Another argument it is paired with is something called philosophical competition. Basically means you cannot perm critiques like if you've invested in a certain system, which means that like even if you theoretically could do both, you shouldn't be able to permute it, in a sense, which is like not really a good argument because then the neg can just read a bunch of infinitely unfair counterplans like we should just solve war. And because you've read arguments relating to war, you can't solve it. Like it obviously makes no sense. But these are like the two most common ways to go for the case. One of them you need a framework interpretation to beat that says we shouldn't lose for representations. And the second one needs like a permutation or something that says, look, we can both do the AF and the alternative, and there's no reason why we can't do both. But these are both like K strategies that like you can have in 1K, and then you can pick and choose your route, depending on what you want to go for. But these are both like the only ways that people can go for Ks. Um, the biggest tip, in my opinion, is that it's like a way to simplify K debate. All debate arguments have four parts. One, uniqueness. Two, link. Three, impact. And four, solvency. Ks are the same. As long as you answer one of them, maybe excluding uniqueness, you will win, and you should focus on the one they mishandle the most. For example, I'll break down a K. The capitalism K says that capitalism is destroying the world. Or like it's prevalent now. The link says that capitalism you cause capitalism. The impact is capitalism causes climate change, war, etc. And the solvency is the alternative would solve capitalism. You only need to pick one of the four things to answer, except maybe uniqueness, because obviously you can say capitalism is low, but then you said they makes it worse. But the link you can say we are not capitalist, or we are less capitalist than the link. The impact you can say capitalism doesn't cause climate change, capitalism doesn't cause war, or you can impact turn it. It says it does cause war and it does cause climate change. Um, or it solves war and it solves climate change. And the solvency is the alternative, and you can say the alternative fails because of state crackdowns or things like militaries that stop the capitalist revolution from happening, which is why it didn't or a communist revolution occurring, which is why it didn't succeed in Russia, Vietnam, and other places. But the thing you should take away from K debate is there are four parts of a K, and you only need to answer one of them to win. You do not have to answer all four of them, but you should definitely have answers to all four. But in the back half, you should pick and choose your route because you will not have a lot of time. But if you do a lot of developed and explained work on at least one of the parts of the argument, there's genuinely like no way you can lose a K debate. It's the same as every substance argument like ever. It has like literally just four parts, and you just need to pick and choose. The wiki, this is your biggest friend. There are a numerous amount of literature and Ks on the wiki with different ways to read them. You should be actively researching on the wiki to find out the new metas and strats to be incorporating into your rounds. There are a few teams to look at. First is Capel KT. Caitlin Tapia is an Eldir who's done fantastic this season. And has final slash won the past 3 tournaments she's went to, and she's primarily a K debater and reads like she has actually read a bunch of different Ks on the wiki, so it's like good to look at and a good resource. Second is Drake SM, that's me. I read a bunch of Ks on my wiki last year, especially. I think I had like 5 different Ks on my wiki. And this year I have like 2. So like if you want to look at like framework case, which is what I was talking about earlier, that is something me and my partner read a lot. That'd be good to look at. Third is Headroyce AJ. They're also one of the really big K teams in policy, and are probably the best policy team right now. They disclose a lot of Ks on the wiki, and the tournament in Green Hill is actually happening right now. So you should actually be able to find some Ks on the wiki being posted as the tournament goes on, and the further they get. So, this should be like pretty helpful for you, and like, it should be like really easy to get help. I think like the biggest takeaways though is like wiki and YouTube rounds. I could not like underestimate how important YouTube rounds are. There are many ways you can interpret how a K works, but you don't know which way will be most receptive to judges. However, debaters have a lot of rounds on YouTube that will make it so that it is. Like Berkeley Prep RV has a lot of good K rounds on YouTube. Northview TC, Capel KT, Lynbrook OM. Those are all teams with a lot of good K rounds on YouTube. Harker AS is probably one of the best K teams you can watch. He has tons and tons of K rounds, specifically on settler colonialism, if that is something you were interested in. And there's just like literally a lot of settler colonialism rounds. Another big resource you can use is watch NDT or college policy rounds, as a lot of teams on those from those schools read a bunch of Ks exclusively, which like is another really big resource. The only problem I'd say those rounds like last like 3 hours long. So if you don't have the attention span, don't worry about it. But you should stick primarily to LD and PF rounds if you don't want to watch that many rounds. And it will be genuinely the best thing to help you like ever if you don't want to coach. Because it'll teach you all you want to know about K debate. Um, if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask.
So in PF, is this like something you would use in extreme like tech rounds?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You would
Really
never
tech rounds. All right.
Yeah, you would never want
Uh,
to read like a K on someone like less experienced or not that experienced.
okay.
Because like most of the time the judges won't understand.
hmm
Um and like apparently like if or not like if you're like not that good of explaining it too, bad judges will not do the work for you most of the time, but good judges will do a lot of the work for you. So you don't have to spend that much time or work like doing
All
the
right.
jobs. Yeah.
I had a question
Yeah.
about the research part. So you said to cut your own cards, right? Instead of
Mhm.
just copying from the wiki.
Yeah.
Where would you find the places to like the literature and stuff to cut your own cards?
Yeah, this is actually a really good question. So like it's like similar to how you do topic prep. If you want to look up like something like economic decline causes war, you can do things like putting economic decline in quotes and then causes and then put war in quotes. So you can like strategically place quotation marks around like things that you want the article to include, because if you put quotation marks, it like separates so like the searches. Another thing you can do is use Google Scholar, because um with Google Scholar, it has a lot of K literature because it's like a scholarly thing. And a lot of people usually write about it, so it's not too hard to find things to write or read about. But like if y'all want resources on like specific literature, I can compile a list if y'all like want. And I can like send y'all a list of like books or something if you like DM me on Discord.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, Rohan. The best response to extinction outweighs racism is that like it's illogical to compare racism in debate to extinction because extinction is a hypothetical impact, but racism is an impact that happens like outside of debate. So it's like impossible to compare the two.
What's like the best first K for beginner to look at just to get introduced to critiques?
I think my go-to K was settler colonialism when I first started. Um, I think like it's like particularly useful because there's a lot of literature about it, but also the Harker AS guy I was talking about has like at least 10 rounds on YouTube of him going for it. Which should make it like super easy to learn because like you'll understand the arguments he's making when going for it. Like there's just like a lot of resources on it, particularly, which can make it easy to learn or get into it. So I think that one is like pretty good.
Thank you.
If racism is an impact outside of the debate, how would the judge evaluate it? It's not like literally like it exists outside the flow, but it's just like the impact happens like materially in debate. So they would say like the racism outweighs because of like it has material effects, it pushes debaters out, which the judge can still evaluate on the flow. But they will just compare it to your impacts and weigh it against it.
So is it like worth using K in a round? Because it's like hard to pull off, you know? So,
I think it's worth it if you understand it. So,
okay.
um, like again, like you should use all the resources I told you about to understand it. But I think you should only read it once you get really comfortable because otherwise debates can get like really confusing if you don't really understand. Um, and like it can be hard to explain to the judge and the judge also will be confused but I think once like you use the resources like they're all like really good the rounds I told you to watch in the team's wikis
Mhm.
um they like all make K-debate super simple to understand if you're like paying attention and locked in um so like I think once you like have a firm understanding of K-debate I think it's strategic to read and it could be a really useful resource to win rounds.
Okay. Thanks.
But what question do you want me to answer? The FemK, um, like I think like the theory of power is like maybe somewhat true. Um, but there are like a lot of arguments you can make against it. For example, I made a lecture about K-negs, but I had a lecture about topicality a few weeks ago that is on the Outreach Debate channel that y'all should watch. I think it's a good resource for learning how to understand how to answer K-AFs or Ks that don't defend the topic. Um, it's like pretty useful. But the FemK is a non-topical K, so I think reading topicality or it's like known other ways known as framework is like a good thing to read. And can be useful and can potentially win you rounds. Um, and it's just like the FemK like probably like would lose to it.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask, kind of like off topic for this one, but do you have like an example of like a topicality thing that we could run for this topic?
Um, let me think. I think Harker LL on their wiki from UKSO finals. They have a topicality shell y'all can read. Um it's on their wiki. And like it's like pretty good. It has like the definitions from this topic too, I think. So that shell is pretty good and you can read it against every KF. What do I think was the best PFK round last year? Um in person, I think it was like one of probably like one of my debates at Blake were pretty good, or against Montgomery Blair at Sunbite was pretty good. On YouTube, I think the Daniel and Jason Strike GZ versus Iowa City West EA round um was pretty good. That video um was pretty like useful to understanding K-debate. It's like pretty simplified. And it should be easy to understand. If you have watched that round, then there's like a lot of Nueva AH rounds. There's one versus Harker LL, the team I just mentioned, that's pretty good. Um, and then there's another one about debating Blake CK or Blake OR. Yeah, there's one about the one of them debating Blake OR at the Ivy Street round robin. That's also a really good recording to watch. Oh, like it was just like a rhetorical line that said like debater or judges always vote for T, and they're like T is anti-black. It wasn't like they were like to like they said it as like for rhetorical purposes, not like actually like they were good debaters. Yeah, no problem. Does anyone else have any more questions?
We can ask you questions on Discord, right?
Yeah. My Discord is if y'all like want it, it's SMURTHY 27. S Murthy 27 is like how you say it, I guess. That's like my username. If y'all add me, I'll accept and I'll respond to your all's DMs if y'all have any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.